The world is in flux. Economic instability, geopolitical tensions, and shifting power dynamics are reshaping the global order. As the United States contemplates second term for Donald Trump, the implications for Europe, America, and the world are profound. This isn't just about one leader or one nation. It's about how interconnected crises like inflation, the Ukraine war, the Middle East, and the rise of China could be influenced by a Trump presidency. Let's take a deep dive into what this could mean for the future of our world. Inflation has become a defining challenge for Western economies. The post-pandemic recovery, coupled with supply chain disruptions and energy crises, has left many nations struggling to stabilize their economies. A second Trump term would likely see a continuation of his America First policies, prioritizing domestic economic recovery over global cooperation. This could mean a renewed focus on tariffs, trade restrictions, and reshoring industries to the U.S. While such measures might boost American manufacturing and jobs in the short term, they could also strain relationships with key allies, particularly in Europe. For Europe, already grappling with its own economic challenges, a more protectionist U.S. could spell trouble. Trade tensions might escalate, and Europe could find itself caught between supporting its own industries and maintaining access to the American market. Moreover, if the U.S. withdraws further from global economic leadership, Europe may need to step up, but at a time when its own resources are stretched thin by inflation, energy costs, and the need to support Ukraine. Speaking of Ukraine, the ongoing war remains one of the most critical issues facing the world today. A second Trump term could bring a dramatic shift in U.S. policy. Trump has long been critical of NATO and has suggested that European nations should take more responsibility for their own defense. While this might align with his America First philosophy, it could also lead to a reduction in U.S. military and financial support for Ukraine. For Europe, this would mean shouldering a greater burden in supporting Kyiv, both militarily and economically. Such a shift could embolden Russia, potentially prolonging the conflict or leading to a negotiated settlement that favors Moscow. For Europe, this would mean navigating a precarious balance between securing peace and ensuring that Russian aggression does not go unchecked. The ripple effects could extend beyond Europe, influencing global security dynamics and the credibility of Western alliances. In the Middle East, a second Trump term could see a continuation of his unconventional approach to diplomacy. Trump's first term was marked by the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, but also by the withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal. A second term might bring renewed pressure on Iran, potentially escalating tensions in the region. For Europe, this could mean navigating a more volatile energy market, as the Middle East remains a critical supplier of oil and gas. At the same time, Trump's closer ties with Gulf states like Saudi Arabia could lead to increased cooperation on energy production, potentially stabilizing global oil prices. However, any escalation with Iran could have the opposite effect, disrupting supply chains and driving inflation even higher. For Europe, already struggling with the economic fallout of the Ukraine war, this would add another layer of complexity to its energy security strategy. And then there's China, the rising superpower that is reshaping the global order. Trump's first term was marked by a trade war with Beijing, as he sought to counter China's economic influence and address issues like intellectual property theft and trade imbalances. A second term could see an escalation of this rivalry, with a focus not just on trade but also on technology, military power, and global influence. For Europe, this presents a dilemma. On one hand, there is growing concern about China's assertiveness and its impact on global trade and security. On the other hand, Europe relies heavily on trade with China and may be reluctant to fully align with a confrontational U.S. approach. The result could be a fragmented global response to China's rise, with Europe seeking a middle path between cooperation and competition. Beyond these specific regions, a second Trump term could have broader implications for the global order. Trump's skepticism of multilateral institutions and his preference for bilateral deals could weaken organizations like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and even NATO. This could create a power vacuum with other nations like China or Russia stepping in to fill the void. At the same time, the economic policies of a Trump administration could exacerbate global inequality. While the U.S. might see short-term gains from protectionist measures, developing nations could suffer from reduced access to markets and investment. This could fuel social unrest and political instability, creating new challenges for global governance. Once the undisputed center of global power, the West now faces a confluence of internal and external challenges. Economic stagnation, political polarization, and social fragmentation are eroding the foundations of Western democracies. Meanwhile, the rise of authoritarian models in China and elsewhere presents a stark contrast, challenging the idea that liberal democracy is the inevitable path forward. As inflation squeezes households, wars drain resources, and alliances strain under pressure, there's a growing sense that the West is no longer the dominant force it once was. The question isn't just about how the West will adapt. It's about whether it can survive this era of decline and redefine itself in a rapidly changing world. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.